All right, today we are going to do objective 3.2, which is to find and interpret domain and range. Now, domain, you wrote down, is all possible x values. So this graph hits a lot of x values, like it hits -7, it hits 0, it hits 6, it hits a lot of stuff in between. It doesn't hit +10 or +9, so that's not part of the domain. Same thing with the x values over here, not part of the domain. Range is all possible y values. So same idea, just for y. -9 is in the range, -8, -7. All these numbers have a dot on this graph somewhere that has that y value. All the numbers up here are not in the range because at no point does this line reach up to like 9 or 10. So when we do this, this is actually quite straightforward. All we need to write is which x values get touched. And the way you normally write it is the low value to the high value. So the lowest x value that this graph touches, you can see all the way on the left here, is -7. So we write -7, and then we write a comma. Then you look back at the graph and you find the highest x value that this touches, which is +6. Like 0 is not higher than 6. Nothing is higher than 6 on this graph in terms of x values. So what we just wrote says that our domain goes from -7 to 6. And by writing it like this, we also imply that our domain is every number in between. And sure enough, that works. Like -2 is in between -7 and 6. Well, here's x equals -2, and sure enough, it has 1, 2 points that have an x value of -2, so that's part of the domain. The last thing we need to write is notation. So if you write a bracket like this, then that means that that point is included. If you write a parenthesis like this, then that means that point is not included. If you look over here, -7 has a filled in or closed circle, which means it actually does touch -7. So we are including -7. Same thing with 6. It actually does touch 6, so we are including 6. The next example, you'll see what it looks like when they're not included. For range, the lowest y value it goes to is down here. That's -9. You notice I'm only looking at the y value. So our range starts at -9. And our range ends as high as it goes in the y direction, which is up here, and that's 4. So our range is -9 to 4. Again, both of these are included because they have filled in dots or filled in circles to indicate that they're actually part of the graph and not just something that it gets close to. So that is our domain, and that is our range, -7 to 6 and -9 to 4. If you look at the second example, this graph looks a little bit different. Like it's not a circle. It goes to infinity in at least one direction here, but we're gonna work the same way. Our domain is our lowest x value to our highest x value. So our lowest x value is far to the left. Our highest x value is far to the right. And you notice the lowest x value we get, it gives you a couple of points, but there's lots more. It seems to be that -8 right there. And the highest x value that we get is farthest to our right. That would be like right here. And normally we would say that that's like +10 in the x direction, but there's clearly an arrow, which means it keeps going. It goes to 11, 12, 13, 1,000, 10 million. The domain for this goes to infinity on the upper direction. And that's because this arrow says that it just keeps going to the right. So the farthest left it goes is -8, and the farthest right it goes is infinity. And that means that right here, and that means the last thing we have to decide is whether or not these are included. Now, -8 has an open circle. That means it gets close to -8, but it doesn't actually include -8. So we write it like this. And infinity in either direction, you always do with a parenthesis as well. Just because infinity is not a number you can reach, you can't get to infinity, so it's not included. The range has a low value and a high value also. This time we're looking from the bottom to the top. And in this case, the high value is a little bit easier. The high value is 9. Nothing on this line goes higher than 9. And 9 is also not included because of the open circle. The lowest that it gets, again, is like down here, but there's an arrow. This arrow, in addition to pointing to the right, also points down, which means it just keeps going down forever. That means the low side of the range is -infinity. And infinity basically just means it keeps going, and the only thing that can change about infinity is it can either go up or down, so positive or negative. And just like last time, it is a parenthesis. Now, just so nobody gets confused, in the first example, everything had brackets, like the hard-cornered brackets, and in the second example, everything has the soft parentheses. That is not always the case. You can mix and match with these, and you will definitely see examples where you do. So you have to choose parenthesis or bracket based on the graph each time, and it can be all one, all the other, or a mix of both. So that was our objective. We have found and interpreted the domain and range of a couple of graphs.